Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Francis. In this tutorial, I will guide you through the process of creating a registration and login form. We will connect it to a database using simple code, and I will provide a thorough explanation of each step to ensure that everyone can easily follow along. The frontend will be crafted using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Towards the end, we will delve into creating the backend with PHP, allowing our form to store data in the database and verify user logins. By the conclusion of this video, we will have visually appealing form, a connected database, and a simple homepage featuring a logout button. I hope you find this tutorial enjoyable and informative. I also ensure to include a timeline in the video description so that you can easily navigate to any specific section of interest. With that said, let's get started. I'm using Visual Studio Code as code editor. I also have a live preview extension installed. I will start by creating a HTML file and naming it index.html. I will click on show preview so that we can visually see the output as we progress. I will use the exclamation mark to auto-generate the HTML skeleton. We'll modify title to read a register and the login. Let's generate a div with a class name container and add ID sign up to it. Let's have a title using a heading 1 element. With the class form title and set it to as a register for our register form. Well, let's create a form with method post. For action, we are going to leave it empty for now. For each input option, we will group the icon, label, and input field together and wrap them with using a class input group. I will be using Font Awesome icons for this, so I will open my browser and search for Font Awesome CDN. I will navigate to the website cdnjs.com and then copy the first link and use it as the source hyperlink in my HTML4 style sheet. We use element I. And for class, we have first for solid icons, and then our icon name, in this case Font Awesome user icon. Then I have input type text, name, first name, and give it ID of first name, then a placeholder first name. Label for first name. We use ID to connect the label to the input field. Another input group for last name. We use the same icon, first for user, input type text, name, last name, ID, last name, placeholder, last name, so required, then create label for last name. We create another input group for email address. The Font Awesome icon for email address is envelope. Input type email. It checks for @ symbol and domain name to ensure the value entered follows a valid email format. Then I have a ID email, placeholder email also required. Then I have a label for email. Another input group for password. We use a Font Awesome lock icon. When we use input a password, the characters entered by user are typically hidden. Then we have a label for password. Let's add an input field that will help us in submitting the form. We can do this by adding an input type submit. Then I will give it a class button, value sign up, which will show up in our form with the name sign up. Let's add a paragraph to provide alternative registration options. We will include icons for Google and an icon for Facebook using the fab for Font Awesome brands icon. Finally, let's create a section with the links that will navigate to other forms. We already have account, and then we have button with ID sign in. We give user option to shift to sign in form. Now that we have completed the sign up container, our next step is to duplicate it and make modification to various sections so as to maintain the same classes for styling to ensure uniformity and identical appearance. I paste it here after the closing tag of the previous container. We'll change ID to sign in. Let's update heading 1 to sign in. We won't be needing both first name and last name. I go ahead and delete them. We will add a link to recover password. On input type submit, let's change value and name to sign in. On the links section, let's update it to read don't have account yet, and button ID is equals to sign up button, and we'll read and sign up. With that completed, we conclude the HTML section and move on to the exciting part, that is enhancing the visual appeal of our form. We will add a style file and name it style.css and link it up to our HTML. We will select all and reset everything. Margin 0. The margin is the space outside an element. Padding 0 sets the padding of all elements to 0. The padding is space inside an element. Then I have box sizing, border box, font family, pop-int. On body, we are going to have a background color of hashtag C9D6FF. Then a background linear gradient. Linear gradient helps in creating a gradient background, in this case transitioning from light gray to light blue. It adds a smooth color transition horizontally across the background. Then I have select a container. I have a background of white, a width of 50 pixel, a padding of 1.5 rem, a margin of 50 pixel. Auto. This way set top and bottom margins to 50 pixel and horizontally centers the element within its container. Then we have border radius of 10 pixel, box shadow of 0 horizontal offset, 20 pixel vertical offset, that 5 pixel blur radius, red, green, blue, alpha. Then we have form, we have margin of 0, 2 rem. Form title, we give it a font size of 1.5 rem, a font weight bold, text align center, a padding of 1.3 and a margin bottom of 0.4. Input, color inherit, sets the color of an element to be the same as it is parent elements. Text color, width 100%, background color transparent, border none, border bottom 1 pixel solid. Then our color we have 75, padding left 1.5 frame, font size 15 pixel. Then we have our input group, have a padding 1% 0, position relative, input group icon, position absolute. When you set a child element to have a position absolute, it positions itself relative to the nearest positioned ancestor. In this case, we have positioned the input group to relative. And then we have a color black, input focus. Focus is a pseudo class selector which targets elements that currently have focus. We're going to give it a background color of transparent, outline transparent, border bottom 2 pixel solid, then a color of 327 90% and 28%. Input placeholder is a pseudo element selector for placeholder. We are going to use a color transparent. Then we have label. We're going to give it a color 757575 and a position relative. Then we position it left 1.2 em, then a top negative 1.3 em. Cursor auto, transition 0.3 second is all. We will use a pseudo class and sibling combinator to animate the label and give it a top of negative 3 em, color HSL 327 90% and 28%, font size 15 pixel. Then we select class recover, we text align it to right, font size 1 rem, margin bottom 1 rem. Recover link, text decoration none, color we have RGB 125, 125235. The cover link on hover, the color turns to blue, text decoration underline, button font size 1.1 rem, padding 8 pixel and 0, border radius of 5 pixel, outline none, border none, width 100%. Then background color we have 125, 235, color white. Then our cursor we have a pointer and transition of 0.9 seconds. Button on hover, we are going to have a color of 07001F. For class or, we're going to set font size to 1.1 rem, margin top 0.5, text align center. For icons, we are going to align them at the center. We're going to give icons color of RGB 125, 235, padding 0.8 for top and bottom, 1.5 for left and right. Border radius 10 pixel, font size 1.5 frame, cursor pointer, then border with 2 pixel, solid with a color of DFE 9F5, margin top 0, margin left and right you have 15 pixel, transition 1 second. Icons eye on hover, we're going to change background to 07001F, similar to our button. Then a font size of 1.6 rem, border 2 pixel, solid, then with a color of 125, 235. We're going to select the links, display flex. It enables flex layout used in parent container, turning its direct children into flex items. Justify content space around, padding 0 for top and bottom and 4 rem for right and left. Margin top 0.9 rem. Font weight, we're going to make it bold. Button, we're going to give it a color of 125, 235. Border none, background color transparent, font size 1 rem and font weight of bold. Button on hover, we are going to underline text, and also we are going to add it a color of blue. After applying these styles, our form has an appealing appearance. To enhance functionality, we will incorporate JavaScript to toggle between hiding and showing forms based on user selection. I will create a new file and name it script.js. After creating the script.js file, I will link it to the HTML file by adding a script tag just before the closing body tag, setting the source attribute to script.js. I will hide the register form by default by adding an inline style and setting the display property to none. We will define 4 variables for the 2 forms and 2 buttons, then attach an event listener to each button. So we are going to have a variable constant sign up button and document get element by ID sign up button. Then we're going to have another variable constant sign in button and give it value of sign in button. Then we're going to have sign in form variable. Then we're going to assign it sign in. Also we have a constant sign up form. We're going to get element by ID. Then we have a sign up. We're going to add event listener on sign up button. So we have sign up button dot add event listener. On click, then we want this function to execute. We want sign in form dot style dot display to be none, and sign up form dot style dot display to be block. This will hide sign in form when this button is clicked, and it will show up the sign up form. Then we are going to add another event listener to sign in button. We have sign in button dot add event listener. On click, then we want this function to execute. We want sign in form dot style dot display to be block. and sign up form.style.display to be none. This will hide sign up form and show up the sign in form. With this, we conclude the front-end development phase. Moving forward, we will be focusing on installing registration data in a database, enabling us to interact with the database through SQL queries when needed. This marks the beginning of the database related work, a stage I particularly enjoy. On the backend, we will be using XAMPP, which includes MariaDB, PHP and Perl. To get started, search for XAMPP in your preferred browser and you will find a result resembling mine. Opt for the Apache Friends website. It is the official website, typically the first result. Select the download option suitable for your operating system. The installation process is straightforward, similar to installing any other software programs. Once XAMPP is installed on your system, find its installation directory in the root directory. Inside XAMPP folder, you'll find various subfolders, including one named htdocs, which is our focal point. Copy the folder where you have been working and paste it into the htdocs folder. I'll proceed to copy mine, the login folder, into the htdocs directory. Using Windows search feature, look for XAMPP control panel and launch it. Upon opening, initiate two essential services here, that is Apache and MySQL. I will start both services. I will launch VS Code within the folder we have just copied into the htdocs directory. Open your web browser and enter localhost, followed by a / and the name of the folder you copied into XAMPP. In my case, I have login. If your form is displayed, it confirms that your configuration are accurate and we can proceed. Open a new tab and enter localhost in the address bar. This action will open the dashboard. Proceed to click on PHP My Admin. Click on New. Then input a database name. I will name it Login and click the Create button. And you will be presented with a page to create a table. Let's create a table named Users with 5 columns and proceed to click the Create button. We'll be presented with a page where we can enter the table names and configure other options. We have column 1 as ID, and also I will check the auto increment to make it primary key. I will give it a length of 10. We also have columns for first name, last name, email and password, all set to variable character for all of them, and with a length of 50. Click Save to create the table. I will open VS Code and rename index.html file to index.php. We'll go ahead and create a new PHP file named connect.php. This file will be used for establishing a connection to the database. Initiate your code with a PHP opening and a closing tags, where we place all code exclusively between these two tags. I will declare 4 variables in PHP. We use $sign to declare variables. So you have a variable host and give it value of localhost, variable user, root, and variable password, empty string. Then a database, then here you enter your database name. Then we are going to create our object to establish a database connection. So we have a variable connector. Then we're going to give it value of the object which will establish the connection to the database. Let's have a block to check for airline connection. If one is detected, let's echo failed to connect to database. We are going to create another PHP file to handle the forms. I will call it register.php and I will open index.php, and on the action of the two forms I will enter register.php, include connect.php to enable us to reuse the code in the connection PHP. In this current file, we are going to use isSet function to check if a variable is set or not. If isSet post sign up, The condition checks whether the form variable named signup is set in the post array. The condition evaluates to true if the signup form element is present in the form that submitted the data. Then we have first name, true first name, then a variable last name, variable email, and a variable password. We are going to use MD5 function to encrypt password to that 2 characters hexadecimal number of password is equals to MD5, then a variable password. We will retrieve all records from the users table where the email matches the one submitted through the registration form. If the number of rows returned is more than 0, it means there is already a user with the same email. In such a case, we will output a message, email address already exists. Else we will insert the data from the form to the database. So insert into users table, first name, last name, email and password. Then we are going to insert these values to the respective columns. We are going to use a query method of database connection. If is equal to true, then we will redirect the user to index.php page if data has been inserted to database. Else we are going to echo an error. So we proceed to create a login form. So if is set post sign in, then variable email, we are going to give it an email submitted from the form. Then a variable password, we give it a value of password submitted from the form. Then we are going to encrypt the password using MD5 function. Select all from table users where email is equals to the email submitted and password is equals to password submitted. If number of rows is greater than 0, then we're going to start a session. Then we're going to fetch a row that is email and pass it to the home page. So when the user is logged in, he will be directed to home page, and also the session email will be accessible. The session is used there to declare supergroup variables. Else echo not found incorrect email or password. We are going ahead to create a PHP file called homepage.php to display the username of the currently logged in user along with a logout button. I have a title as homepage. I will add opening and closing PHP tags and call function session start. Session start function starts or assumes a session, allowing you to store and retrieve values in the session's supergroup array. I also reuse the code in connect.php. Then I have style text align center, padding 15%. Then I have paragraph style font size 50 pixel, font weight bold. Hello, then PHP opening and closing tag. If we set supergroup variable email, then assign it to variable email. Then select users.all columns from user, where users.email is equals to the variable email passed from the supergroup variable. Then we are going to echo row first name, concatenate with a blank space, then concatenate it with a last name. I will now attempt to log in and check if the displayed first name and login person is visible. It is great to see that it is functioning as expected. For the final step, we will incorporate a logout button. So create our last PHP file and name it logout.php. Then opening and closing PHP tag, add a session destroy function and specify the page I want user to be redirected to after logout, which in our case is the index.php. How about we create a brand new user profile for a certain Mark Lila with a unique email address. Once this is done, let's try logging in using Mark's account. Wow, hello Mark. So homepage is actually displaying the first name and last name from the database. This concludes our tutorial video. I trust you have gained valuable insights. If you found it helpful, please consider subscribing to my channel and giving it thumbs up. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you and happy coding.